Imagine a forest where the air feels heavy, thick with oxygen, more than a third purer than what we breathe today. The leaves above rustle with a soft hiss, not from birds or mammals, but from something far more ancient and alien. A shadow flits past, not a bird, a giant dragonfly, its 4 gossamer wings whirring like helicopter blades, its eyes as wide as coins, its wingspan stretching nearly 3 feet, glides effortlessly through the humid air. Below, something long and armored rustles through the ferns. A millipede the size of a python, moving with deliberate grace. This was Earth from 300 million years ago, during the late Carboniferous and early Permian periods. The age of giant bugs had begun. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe to Timeburied. Let us know what topics you are interested in the comments below. This was a world profoundly different from our own. Thick swamp forests stretched across much of the supercontinent, covered in towering leucopsids and horsetail trees. The atmosphere brimmed with oxygen, around 35%, compared to today's 21%. And it was this supercharged air that fueled the rise of enormous arthropods. Why oxygen? Because bugs breathe through small openings along their bodies called spiracles. The more oxygen available, the more it could diffuse into their bodies without the need for lungs or blood to carry it. With extra oxygen saturating the air, their internal plumbing was suddenly capable of supporting bigger and bulkier bodies. One of the most iconic titans of this time was Meganeura, a genus of giant dragonflies with wingspans up to 70 centimeters, about the length of a newborn baby. Unlike their modern cousins who dart through the air catching mosquitoes, Meganeura was more like a stealth fighter. It hunted small amphibians and other arthropods, a true aerial predator in a world without birds or bats. Then there was Arthropleura, a nightmarish millipede that could grow over 2.5 meters long. That's longer than a king-size bed, just to be clear. With a flattened, armored body and dozens of legs moving in hypnotic synchrony, it cruised through the leaf litter and decaying plant matter like a slow-moving tank. Thankfully, evidence suggests it was more of a gentle giant, feeding mostly on dead plants. Still, imagine crossing paths with something like that while foraging for berries. You'd never eat fruit again. The seas weren't free from this arthropod gigantism either. Scorpions the size of house cats prowled the shallows. And sea scorpions, also known as eurypterids, reached lengths of over 2 meters. Some even had paddles for swimming and sharp pincers for grasping prey, making them apex predators in their ecosystems. The Carboniferous period was essentially a bug-themed horror movie on repeat, running 24/7 across every continent. The abundance of oxygen also meant that fire was a constant risk. Dead plant matter from the dense swamp forests built up faster than it could decompose, creating thick layers of fuel. A single lightning strike could ignite vast wildfires, feeding off the dry brush and oxygen-rich air. Some fossilized evidence even suggests that firestorms swept across ancient forests, resetting entire ecosystems. Now, you might be wondering, if giant bugs were so successful, why aren't we swatting foot-long mosquitoes today? The answer lies partially in who showed up next. During the late Permian period, reptiles and early synapsids, the ancestors of mammals, began to diversify. Vertebrates were on the rise, claiming niches once ruled by insects. But more importantly, oxygen levels began to drop. This drop wasn't a random accident. It came with sweeping climatic shifts. The Earth dried out. Swamps receded. Massive volcanic eruptions, particularly from the Siberian traps around 252 million years ago, belched out carbon dioxide, acidifying oceans and contributing to the greatest extinction event in Earth's history, the Permian-Triassic extinction. Nearly 90% of all species perished. The oxygen that once supercharged bug bodies was choked away. The air got thinner, the bugs got smaller. But for that brief window in geological time, insects were the emperors of Earth. Not mammals, not reptiles, not even the mighty dinosaurs, who were still millions of years away from making their debut. It was a time when the buzzing of wings drowned out the silence of the swamps, when centipedes ruled the forest floor, and when every step risked brushing up against a creature that looked like it crawled straight from a nightmare. As the Carboniferous period gave way to the Permian, the world didn't just get drier, it got meaner. The swampy lowlands that once served as havens for megabugs began to shrink, replaced by more arid interiors and shifting climate belts. With oxygen levels slipping from their record highs, the very physiological advantage that had once allowed arthropods to scale up in size now turned against them. Their bodies, built on diffusion alone, could no longer sustain the massive forms they once boasted. Slowly but surely, the age of the giants came to an end. But extinction didn't come all at once. Fossil records suggest that some of these massive insects clung on for longer in isolated, oxygen-rich pockets. A few of the smaller species even adapted, downsizing their bodies, altering their life cycles, developing more efficient respiratory systems. Others, like Arthropleura, disappeared completely, their once dominant presence fading without a trace from the fossil record after the early Permian. It was a slow vanishing act, a majestic cast retreating behind the curtain of evolutionary change. So why didn't another burst of oxygen ever bring them back? Well, it tried. During the Mesozoic and early Cenozoic periods, there were brief spikes in oxygen again, but by then, the playing field had changed. Vertebrates now ruled the ecosystems. Birds had taken to the skies, and mammals scurried through forests. Even reptiles were airborne, with pterosaurs dominating the aerial domain for tens of millions of years. Insects were still around, of course, but their golden age of unchecked growth was over. No matter how much oxygen surged again, the evolutionary window had passed. There were also other pressures: predation, competition, and simple biomechanical limits. Insects, unlike vertebrates, don't have internal skeletons. They rely on exoskeletons, which become unwieldy and inefficient at larger scales. A bug the size of a dog would have to lug around a suit of armor too heavy for its spindly legs, and its body would buckle under its own weight. The laws of physics had no sympathy. And yet, their legacy persists. Today's dragonflies are still terrifyingly efficient hunters, even at a fraction of Meganeura's size. Cockroaches, those indestructible mini-tanks, are direct descendants of Carboniferous ancestors and remain nearly identical in design. Millipedes still creep along the forest floors, though the average one now fits in your hand rather than your living room. In many ways, they've outlasted their own golden age by going small and staying flexible. Then there's the fossil evidence, nature's time capsules. In Germany's famous Posidonia Shale and the coal beds of North America, beautifully preserved impressions of giant wings and segmented bodies tell stories of worlds gone by. Insects trapped in amber, their delicate antennae and eyes perfectly intact, give us an almost voyeuristic glimpse into ecosystems that no longer exist. We stare into their alien eyes, and they stare back through time. And what stories they tell. Like the time in 1880 when British paleontologist Samuel Scudder first described Meganeura. The fossil, discovered in a coal mine in France, was unlike anything seen before. Scudder dubbed it the monster dragonfly, but many scientists initially doubted that such a massive insect could have flown. It wasn't until later aerodynamic studies and fossil comparisons confirmed that yes, Meganeura could indeed take to the air, its vast wings creating lift in the denser, oxygen-rich atmosphere of its day. Or the chilling realization in the 20th century that Arthropleura, the giant millipede, left fossilized trackways in Nova Scotia, so large and distinct that early geologists mistook them for snake trails. These tracks showed evidence of a deliberate, confident gait, with segments and legs moving in concert. The beast may be extinct, but its footprints still ripple across time. And then there are the Eurypterids, the sea scorpions. These weren't technically insects, but arthropods nonetheless, and they played their own part in the grand saga. Some were armored like tanks and built for ambush, hiding beneath the silty seabed before erupting upwards to seize prey with clawed appendages. Fossils from the Silurian and Devonian periods show they could grow over 2 meters long, making them some of the largest arthropods of all time. They disappeared before the Carboniferous explosion, but their influence lingered, an ancient warning of just how powerful bugs could become when the conditions were right. All of this, Meganeura, Arthropleura, the sea scorpions, paints a picture of Earth as it once was: wild, overgrown, strange, a place where nature experimented on a massive scale, dialing everything up to 11. It wasn't always elegant, it didn't always work, but it left behind a fossil record that continues to baffle and inspire. Today, we marvel at blue whales and elephants as the giants of the natural world, but they're really newcomers. For hundreds of millions of years before vertebrates strutted onto the scene, the kings of the world were bugs. Multi-legged, exoskeleton-armored, compound-eyed bugs. They dominated skies, seas, and soil, not with intelligence or speed, but with sheer numbers, adaptability, and the simple physics of a world that for a time favored their kind. So next time you swat a mosquito or squash a cockroach, remember, you're not looking at an annoying pest. You're looking at the descendant of a dynasty that once ruled the planet. The age of giant bugs may be over, but their story still crawls just beneath the surface.